कि कल्चर का इकोनॉमी पे क्या इम्पैक्ट होता है?
Yeah, I think that's a very important question for us to start with. Because, often a lot of the discussions, especially on the economy, is very in the now, in the current. But if you really think about it, the bigger picture of how countries aspire to be economic superpowers, how countries have evolved to become economic superpowers over a longer period of time, say 20, 30, 40, 50 years. That sort of perspective, I think, is very useful. If you really look at the prism of cultural norms and narratives, basically the role of culture and its impact on economic outcomes, it's not a sort of a Bharat phenomena alone. In the rest of the world, many countries who aspired to be economic superpowers have, invested both time and energy and also evolved their economic principles based on such paradigms. So, for instance, if you take Japan, the entire sort of Japanese economic model is based on a lot of intrinsic Japanese ideas.
Okay.
That's why you see that, when you walk in, when you get into Japan, everything is in Japanese, right? It's very difficult to see English. Of course, there are people who speak English, but the natural tone and tenor of the entire Japanese economy is highly customized to their sort of cultural, societal fabric. So that's why you even see within the Ministry of Finance in Japan a whole unit which talks about the role of cultural norms and narratives and economic history. Similarly, in China, if you take the Chinese sort of prosperity in the last 20, 30, 40 years, a lot of their economic principles are highly decentralized at the local level. I mean, though they're a communist country, I think enough research has been done to show that more of their economic ideas at the decentralized level, at the village level, at the grassroots level, is highly linked to those contours of cultural norms and narratives in those
and
local,
language is a part of that.
Exactly, local communities. I mean, this is why I'm trying to mention China is China is by and large a non-religious society, but within that paradigm itself, there are a lot of these cultural contours which are there, which are very natural to their way of life, and policy making sort of tries to account for this. And of course, having the bigger picture of ideas from the rest of the world, but at the foundational level, having it customized to their local norms and narratives. Even the United States, the paragon of, say, Western capitalism, much of the ideas emanated from this idea of Protestant ethic. The Protestant ethic was central to both the idea of a nation state, which the French Revolution and things like that, and also on the economic side of how modern day capitalism evolved. A lot of credit is given to the Protestant ethic, either by Max Weber and a few others. So even in the United States, which is not as culturally dense as, say, Asian societies, I think at the foundational level, there is a sort of an inspiration, indigenous inspiration, which drives their thrust for economic dominance and economic prosperity. I think in that context, in this big picture that we're talking about, Bharat's case is a no-brainer. We are the most culturally dense, culturally diverse society in humanity across the breadth of this land. And every, say, few kilometers, you have new languages, sub-languages. There is so much diversity in our land, which means that there is a natural way of life. I call this in my books the Dharmic way of life, which drives not just spiritual, religious choices, but more importantly, economic, social choices, which individuals make, corporates make, and also policymakers make. So this is a sort of an extension of a multi-thousand-year-old phenomena, this way of life, which plays a very important role in a lot of these choices in our society. So that's where my research sort of brings together these ideas. Through my previous book in Kautilyanomics, I talk about 3rd century BCE is Arthashastra, and I apply it and I create this concept called Dharmic capitalism, based on the idea. Basically, I define Dharma through the prism of ethics, responsibilities, and institutions, and engaging with the rest of the world. And then I map it to the Indian economy, trade, labor contracts, inequality, and things like that in the first book. And this book, Dharmanomics, which you just spoke about, deals with the common era kingdoms, the Cholas, Pallavas, Pandyas, Kamboja Desa and Cambodia, Southeast Asian kingdoms, Vijayanagaram kingdoms, where not only does Kautilyan Dharmic capitalism play a role, even the idea of the dharmic ecosystem, the temple-based economies, seeing the temple much beyond just as a religious institution, but as an economic sort of driver, and then the role of corporate guilds and things like that. Lastly, yeah, I mean, for those who are curious and interested, I mean, the Honorable Prime Minister's visit to Gangaikonda Chorapuram is an important landmark visit, and I cover that in this book as well, on how the Cholas not only had a flourishing, not only was economics, the global economics central in the Asian region, in the Indian Ocean during that time, but they had such a sustainable way of evolving the economy as well.